What's happening, everybody? Yes, I didn't get the title wrong, and no, this isn't shameless clickbait. Something was legitimately wrong with my Steam Deck, and I know I made a video pretty much praising it for about 15 minutes straight, but around the first week I owned the Steam Deck, there was something that happened that almost stopped my heart. And surprisingly, there weren't any other videos talking about this. I had to find out exactly what possibly happened to my Steam Deck from a random Reddit post. And I'm not sure if Steam is even talking about this because I was searching and didn't find anything about it. But there is something very wrong with the Steam OS and the internal memory. If you bought the 64GB model, then you should listen very closely. There's a setting on Steam where you can enable or disable the shader cache. When you first initially get the Steam Deck, that shader cache option is enabled, which fills your memory card with the necessary shaders almost every time you launch your games, and they keep compiling. I just straight away disabled this after some time, and after this happened, and I have a 256GB model, and it still managed to catch me by surprise. So if you have a 64GB model, then most likely you're going to run into this issue. So after my 256GB ran out of its last megabyte, I was currently in desktop mode trying to download some third-party programs. Don't worry, nothing extremely shady. And when I tried to go back into gaming mode, the system just didn't want to start. It stayed on a screen that showed the Steam logo loading for a long time. And then after that, it went back to initial setup. I thought this was just a mess up on the Steam OS's part, so I selected my language, my country, yada yada yada, and then it showed that it was installing the Steam OS again. Now, of course, at this stage, I was still in denial, so I just let it go. I thought it was just updating the Steam OS, or there was some kind of big update, because there was no reason why the Steam OS should have crashed that hard to the point that it needed to reinstall the entire OS. But it ended up installing the entire OS again, which, because my internal memory was full, it kept looping back to the initial setup and OS install screen. It looped about 7 times before I finally got the message that I wasn't going to go back to my normal user data and OS. And all of those screenshots I took. I love the Nintendo Switch. I took about 20,000 screenshots on that thing because I just love the graphics, and Steam Deck looks exceptionally better, so I already took about 500. So it deleted all of that, but after looking into Reddit, it seemed that the solution was to make a recovery image on some kind of flash drive or external hard drive and then recover the Steam OS. Now, for most people, you can just make a recovery image, and Valve, I don't know if I said Valve before or Steam, linked that recovery image on their website so you could find it like nothing. Now, because at the time I wasn't home, I wanted to find a faster route on how to get my stuff back, but because I went to the initial setup and OS install, all of my data was gone already. So in order to get my recovery image back, this is what I did. I'm not sure if it's actually the proper thing to do to get your OS back up and running, but I held the down volume and pressed the power button. Then I selected to boot from file, and I selected the third partition, and I kept scrolling through that partition until I reached a boot file. I selected that boot file and it loaded my Steam OS. Pretty great. Now, I'm not sure if that's exactly what you should do, because a lot of people said that they just skipped that initial OS install and booted a recovery image from a flash drive, which ended up recovering all of their data. So some people actually got their data back, some people didn't. I think it depends on how many different variants of files you have. I'm not exactly sure how some got their data back, but I lost all of my data, including a lot of save data and games and screenshots. But it was still pretty impressive because I ended up getting the Steam OS back up and running without a recovery image flash drive. But yes, if you have the 64GB model, then probably going to run into this issue more than anybody. Try your hardest to watch your storage and see if the shaders are compiling to the point that it's about to fill your internal memory. If you have something like the 512GB, then most likely you're not going to run into this for some time. First of all, I don't even think you can install Windows on that, because Windows 10 or 11 is like 70GB by now. And secondly, just taking screenshots, because the screenshots on Steam Deck are a lot higher resolution than the ones on Nintendo Switch, they take up a lot more space. So by the time you take about 300 screenshots, it'll probably take up around 1 GB. So if you have the time, go to desktop mode, and in order to back up these screenshots, you can actually upload them. All you have to go to is view, then screenshots, and then you'll see categories, which are the games. You can select all from that category and it shows upload. I'm not sure if you guys already knew this, but that's what I do every time I want to back up my screenshots. Instead of moving them to an SD card, which you could do also, you can just simply upload them to the cloud, which is about 32 gigabytes, and that's enough for anybody. So you can always have them when you connect to the internet if you want to view them, or I think there's an option to view the screenshots that were uploaded on the app as well. I'm not very sure. But yes, that was a huge problem I had with my Steam Deck. So this is an official warning video. Do not fill your internal memory. And maybe they ironed it out. Maybe they came up with some kind of sleeper update that got rid of this issue. But just in case, until they officially announce it, try not to fill your internal memory, or else it'll go into an install loop and potentially erase your data, even if you manage to recover it. There's a potential chance it could erase it. So yeah, guys, I hope I can upload this video fast enough to avoid more issues with the Steam OS and internal memory. But yeah, if you can't get the 512 gigabyte, at least try to get the 256, because that 64 gig is looking less and less appealing every day while owning this system. And thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a good one. Later.